Hello, my fans, friends, and fanatics. It is I, Christopher Wilmot, your continual host for this simulcast of dissemination of truth over tea, where we're learning to tell the truth over spilling the tea to the LGBT community and beyond. So whether you're in or affiliate with the community or even beyond the community, this is a safe space for you because why? God accepts you too. So this is truth over tea. We're just teaching, preaching, talking, and outreaching truth to you all that maybe you may have never knew. Truths biblically and spiritually that I think that is necessary for us to be effective in these times and to be sustained during these times. I know these are crazy and really perilous times that we're really living in. The Bible speaks of it and we are all seeing it. And whether it's with this subject matter or this topic or not, and others alike, we are seeing a breakdown and a rebuilding of certain things and people that we maybe had never thought we would see, or a place we never thought we would be. People we esteemed or following, even religions that we esteem are falling, and people are deconstructing and leaving the faith and so on and so forth. So we needed to know what's going to sustain us through all these changes that are happening to us and the times that we're in. Well, that's what I've carved out this safe space and place to tell you truth over religious and even society. But I wanted to carve out a special episode to discuss this matter, even though I typically wouldn't, because it's the controversial matters surrounding around the Diddy controversy. I typically would never speak on current events and even other people's drama and trauma because I feel like that's more tea, not truth. And I know even within the LGBT community, we have a saying, spill the tea. What's the tea, girl? Well, I don't really like to get into that. One, because I'm not a gossip spreader or sharer. I'm a gospel spreader and sharer. And I think we've exchanged gospel for gossip. Even religious people of the Christian faith and other faiths who profess Jesus as their Lord, are getting caught up in all this stuff and the controversy that's happening, and they're being sucked into the drama and the gossip, and nobody's being held accountable to the truth, and nobody's going back to the truth with which is God's love, the gospel of grace itself, not the Bible, as we've talked and said. It said go in all the world and tell the gospel, which I believe is the ultimate truth. So this space and place, I'm carving out to kind of, in a play on words, in a unique way, tell you this truth and show you the relevancy of God's grace, which again is the truth, and the current event matters that we're in. And the only reason why, like I said, I'm even teaching or talking on this subject where I typically wouldn't is because there's some truths I was able to pull out of it when just talking and meditating and praying with God. He started talking and teaching me some things, some takeaways from this whole experience, you can say, that's happening with Diddy and the controversy surrounding that whole mess. It's just mess. I mean, let's just say it. And it's really a disservice to Black media, a lot of Black people, and even the gay community, which is often always seen as the promiscuous, sexual kind of a group of people, which we are so much more than that. But nonetheless, I digress. We have to hold ourselves and others accountable to the love, which is really the truth that we're supposed to be walking in and really supposed to be expressing and experiencing. But there are some of us, even myself included, probably have got caught up in the lust aspect where our sex and sexuality is concerned. So without further ado, I have some truths for you. Now on this podcast or the simulcast, I call it truth over tea. So I always use some choice of beverage, whether it's tea, coffee, or whatever other choice of beverage you desire, give you something to sip on while we share some truth to help the truth go down palatable. Hopefully this will be palatable for you. So these are just some spiritual lessons that I think God was teaching me through the Diddy experience, because when I started listening and hearing and reading some of the stuff that's coming out about the Diddy experience, I was very grieved, of course, what their the allegations are, but I'm also even grieved with how we're responding to it. So I'm not going to talk on the facts of the case. I'm not going to talk about how many dildos they found and the water bottles and the oil. I'm not getting into all of that. There's plenty of spaces and places that would talk tea with you. This is a space and place for truth for you. I'm going to tell you some spiritual lessons I've learned and learning from it all. And so I have about 4 or 5 of them that I'm going to share with you, and I pray that they bless you. Some of you are probably familiar with this because I did post it on my personal Facebook page. I'm not going to share that or Give no shameless plug there because it's a personal Facebook page, so it's not something I care for everyone to follow. But I do want you to like, comment, and subscribe here, and I do want you to follow me on my podcast and on my gay apparel page. So G.A.Apparel. You can find and follow on Instagram and Facebook, and then obviously you can keep up with our Truth Over Tea podcast, available on all streaming platforms. But here's some truths for you over tea. Spiritual lessons from Diddy. First one that God told me and taught me is people who celebrate someone's downfall are people who prayed for it. Do you not recognize or realize there are people who are praying on you to fall? So when you do fall, they celebrate it. And anybody who celebrates a person's destruction, their drama or trauma, is because they're praying for the drama and trauma and the destruction. Even though that we're living in a time, a lot of things is being exposed and being brought to the light, and a lot of people are morally falling and failing. But I don't want you to celebrate that. I don't think God gets anything out of us saying, aha, I told you so, or aha, look at this person or that person, whether it's Diddy or somebody else, to celebrate somebody's downfall. And again, I'm not excusing what he did, and I'm not trying to justify what he did. I'm trying to ask you how you're responding to what he did. How are you responding? What are you learning from it? Is it just more gossip and hearsay that you're just sharing and spreading instead of the gospel that we should be, if you call yourself a believer or follower of Christ? Or are you just celebrating the fact that, look at this, look at him, look at them? So never celebrate somebody's downfall, because, and if you do, you prayed for it, or you're praying on them to fall. And these are kind of people you need to pay attention to and mark, not in a good way, but a bad. Second lesson I am learning is people love to condemn you publicly. Just look at this Diddy incident. People love to condemn you publicly, but won't correct you privately. Think about that. Whether it's Diddy or in this situation, or even, I know, preachers and pastors and prophets who have had moral failures. I'm not going to name any names there, but I know a prominent preacher a few years ago who had a moral failure, had an affair or something like that. A very well-known pastor, and everybody just pretty much socially crucified him, out and off with him, and ostracized them, and castrated him pretty much out of society in a sense. And it's like, what? Like, where is this behavior you see in Christ, claiming yourself to be a follower of Christ, just because they fell from a moral thing, following Christ, just because they had a moral failure, just because they didn't live up to the ultimate commandment, which I believe is love, doesn't mean we get to now step out of love to judge them, condemn them, and hurt them. And anybody who claims to love you and is condemning you, they don't even match. That's why, again, in my deconstruction, reconstruction journey and the beyond that I like to profess I'm in, I'm beyond all of this religious stuff that many of you are still in and caught up in. But I'm beyond of that because I realize there's no benefit in that. Because people are condemning and judging people for stuff that really maybe is not even a violation of love. But even if it is, you're stepping out of love to judge, correct, or condemn them. And condemnation there's no room for condemnation in love. There's room for correction in love, which brings me to my other point. You can correct somebody in love, but you can never condemn somebody in love. So if you're condemning somebody, you've stepped out of love to do so. And also, if you're judging somebody in this way, you're stepping out of love to do so, because Scripture says that God will not condemn us. In Christ, there's no room for condemnation. And it even says that Jesus is not come to condemn us. Sorry. And so if Jesus has not come to condemn us, why are we? If Jesus doesn't judge us like this, stepping out of love to do it, why are we stepping out of love when we judge others? Which really the only point and purpose of judgment is to reveal and hold accountable the individual to love, to walk in love, because we're accepted in the beloved. So we have some corrections of our own to do while we're trying to out here correct everybody. And what vein are we correcting, and what name are we correcting them in? And for what purpose are we correcting them for? Is it for love, or is it just for some religious law we're trying to esteem and hold them accountable to? Is it for heteronormative norms and standards that really we don't have to all esteem, and we all don't have to practice, because we all are not straight, and that's okay. What is it that we're holding people accountable to, and for what? Is it for love, or is it for other things that have very little to nothing to do with love? And on this podcast and on this simulcast, that's all we're gonna esteem is love. So judging people, Is there any room to judge anybody outside of love? And if you call this person or people your loved one at any point in time, you can correct them in love, but there's no room to condemn them in love. This is another point I got in truth I learned from the Diddy controversy. People who don't correct their friends will be the first ones to condemn their friends, could be the first ones to condemn their friends. Because again, they don't feel comfortable maybe to correct them, or they are benefiting off of their demise, they're benefiting off of their ignorance, they're benefiting off of them some way, shape, or form. So it would actually do them a disservice financially or monetarily or, socially to correct some of their behavior. So since they benefit off of that misbehavior, they won't correct that misbehavior. And so, but if you really call yourself a friend, you kind of have to hold your friend accountable to be the best version of them that they can be for themselves, not for you. But people who claim to be friends with people don't correct these so-called friends that they claim to have. But yet they will be the first, sometimes the ones to condemn them and say, yeah, see, I always knew they were like this, or I always knew this. But did you tell them that? Just like there's all these friends of Diddy's and constituents and partners. Oh yeah, I always saw just weird stuff and this, that, and the third. Where's all this stuff coming from now? Did you ever say that before? And this is supposed to be your friend. So again, people who don't correct their friends will sometimes be the first ones to condemn their friends, saying, oh, I told you so, or I always knew. No, you didn't. And if you did, why didn't you say anything? Most likely it's because you were benefiting from it. That's why you couldn't correct it. Or two, maybe they didn't make a safe space for you to tell them the truth. I don't know which one, but how can you really be their friend if you can't tell them the truth? So another thing, and this is probably my last thing, is this is really showing me how disingenuous people are. Disingenuous people, spaces, and places are. People can be in a space and a place and then not be genuine. They can be a person and not be genuine. Why? Because they're not living authentically from love and for love. They're living for lust. They're living for money. They're living for greed, notoriety, whatever the case may be, but it's not for love. And if it's not for love, to me, it's disingenuous. If you're only around me to benefit from me, that's not genuine. If you're only around me because of something that esteems you or can satisfy or benefit you, you don't love me. If you're around me for anything other than because you love me, then it's disingenuous. Or if it's a space or place that you're in, maybe it's a church that you go to, maybe it's a business that you work for. If you're only there to get the money and work from and there's no love attributes that are ascribed or associated with that space and place, why are you even there? Now I know I get it. We go to work to make money, but there should be a passion for love for the service of whoever you're serving that you're doing it for too. If the only reason why you're doing this is for money, it's going to probably taint your heart and also taint the things that you're doing to get that money, because that's the purpose of why you're doing it. But if that's not the purpose, which I don't think it should be, for why you do whatever it is that you do, then you're going to be able to be genuine about what you do. And so it's just interesting, these spaces and places that I'm seeing come up and even now being torn down that have very little to nothing to do with love. It's love and in the sense of its people, its coworkers, its partners, and so on and so forth. It's all for money and greed and fame and notoriety. And when you start chasing these things, you start attracting demonic and weird and evil things, because all that stuff is evil, weird, and demonic. And I'm not saying money is evil. I'm not saying necessarily people are evil, but what I am saying, people who don't have the right genuine motives become evil and end up doing evil. And so are the spaces and places they create. And so if it's not for love, what is it for? And I'm just, I guess, tired in this day and time, whether we talk about dating, which we're going to talk about, whether we talk about religion, which we have talked about, sex or sexuality, everybody is so disingenuous. They're doing stuff for their own greed and gain, not for love, not for the genuineness of the care for the person, but what they can get and take from the person. And I'm just tired of spaces and places and people who are disingenuous. Let's even talk about being disingenuous to yourself. if what they're alleging is true with Diddy and others that are like Diddy, because we're talking about Diddy now, but there's Diddy's in your life, and just like there's Judases in your life. There's so many people that may be in the limelight who are getting this attention. That if you really look in your own circle and evaluate your own entourage, you see that, oh, I have some Diddy's in my own circle who do stuff in the booth in the back in the corner in the dark that, I don't really ask any questions, but I kind of feel like they're doing stuff. And it's like, well, hey, that's a Diddy example there. But the disingenuous to self is what I'm referring to when I make that reference. Is some of you haven't even accepted yourself. That's not being genuine. Some of you, even though God accepts you, you haven't accepted yourself as gay, even though God does, and yet you're around here doing stuff that is gay, but you haven't accepted yourself to live that way. So since you haven't accepted yourself to live in the light and the love, which is the truth thereof, you do stuff in the booth in the back in the corner in the dark, and you start attracting more stuff that is done in the dark. So if you're not really, I don't know if that makes sense, but if you're not really accepting the fullness of who you are or parts about who you are, you tend to be shamed for who you are, and then you tend to do stuff in the dark to express that side of who you are, because you've been able to accept it and come into the light with it. And there are people, and Diddy's not the only one if what they're saying is true. There's so many other people who are doing stuff like that, and that you guys esteem as heterosexual through these heteronormative norms that they're esteeming or pleasing you all for meeting. They're some of the gayest people. I'm not trying to get into too much tea, because that's not my business here. But the truth is, there's a lot more gay people than you think. And this whole experience, or I keep saying experience, this whole revealing exposure of what's going on with Diddy is proving there's a lot of people who've been named among the people who have done stuff with him, and he with them, that has been a little bit sus, as the kids would say. But these are the rappers y'all esteem, because they're the heteros, they fit your heteronormative norms. They masculine, toxic masculinity, if you ask me. They're macho, machismo, as the Spanish community would say. And it's just like, but they're gay. And because you have this narrative of how you let society tell you how gay people are, you can't, and it doesn't fit these other people who don't seem to fit that narrative of how gay people act. They're actually there's a diaspora of different kinds of gay people, just like there's a diaspora of black people and white people and Christian people, straight people. Not all straight people are the same, not all black people, not all gay people, not all people are the same. They have similarities, but they're not all the same. And you have to leave room for people to be who they are, instead of you letting society or religion tell you who you are. You have to understand, we were made in God's image. So the only person who can tell us who we are is a person who made us who we are and accepts us for who we are, believe it or not, despite religious and popular belief. So if you're being disingenuous if you haven't even accepted a part of you that is a part of you. Now, I don't believe your sexuality is all of you. That's why I would never ask you to fully identify with being gay. But I do want you to identify with I do want you to side with the affections that you have. You don't have to necessarily identify with them, but you do need to accept them. Side with them, instead of trying to resist them and go through all these religious ploys to get rid of them, and you end up having them anyway. Be like me, like I was ex-gay, advocating for that, realizing I'm advocating for being ex-gay, but by definition I'm still gay. I'm still gay, even if I'm not practicing it, even if I'm still struggling with it, even if I'm telling everybody it's bad to be it, and I'm using all these biblical scriptures to support my biases. That still doesn't change the fact you're still gay, Chris. And once you learn that God accepts you that way, you start to learn to accept yourself that way, and to live in the light of the truth, which is love. So you stop doing stuff that's a contrary to truth and love, because you're doing it in darkness and evil, and expressing yourself through lust and pride, which obviously is not love. So be honest and be genuine with yourself. You like men, you like women. It's okay. But learn now, because you've accepted that part of you, learn how to live in love in light of that part, or that thing that you may like, or you may have, or you may do. Do it in light of love, because that's the commandment we're supposed to be living under. So, I say all of this, and I've said all of this, and will continue to say some more of it, but I just think these are just lessons that we need to learn from the whole Diddy controversy. It's not the tea that they're spilling, but the truths that we're learning. And the truth is that there's more people who are gay than you think, and it's okay. And this is another thing. While I'm talking about that, stop telling people if they're gay, they just need to be gay. But then you condemn them if they start being gay. It's like, again, society is, it's like catch-22. They say this and put their foot in the mouth and say that. Just like religion and religious people, they say this, but then they put their foot in the mouth and say that. And it's just like, well, does God love me or not? Or is this true or not? Or is the Bible, are we sola scriptura or not? It's like the people always love to say something, not realizing how they're actually condemning themselves when they say it. But if you're going to tell, guys who date girls and they're not honest about their sexuality, if you tell them it's okay to be gay, just be gay, and then when they actually come out and be gay, you condemn them from living that way, you're never going to create safer spaces and places for them to express themselves because you keep condemning them. And let me help the people who are still homophobic and hate everybody. Why do you always have to talk about homosexuality? Because you guys keep shaming it. If we stop shaming homosexuals and homosexuality, there will be no need for homosexuals and homosexuality to be prided. You don't need to pride yourself off something that that you're feeling accepted by and everybody's not shaming you for. But the more we shame it, the more they're going to be prideful on it, because it's to counteract that shame. Now, again, I'm talking about them and the masses, not me. I don't pride myself off of anything but love. Because that's the only pride thereof, is that you're walking in love. But others are not at that space and place like I'm growing to be. So they're going to pride themselves off of their sex, their sexuality, their race, or their religion. But if you stop shaming people for their sex, their sexuality, their race, or religion, they'll stop having to be prideful with it. And they can finally accept it, because you have finally fully accepted it. But what I want us to do is, even if others won't accept you, remember God does, and you can accept you. So I reiterate these truths that I think that will be helpful for you through this whole lesson I'm learning. Is people who celebrate someone's downfall, they prayed on it and prayed for it. People who condemn you publicly but won't correct you privately, they need to be marked as people you need to watch. People who love to condemn you publicly but won't correct you privately, I said that, I'm sorry. People who are in your entourage who celebrate with you but are afraid to correct you, but will condemn you with other people the moment they get to. Again, mark those people. You can never truly condemn somebody you love, but you can always correct somebody in love. Other point, people who don't correct their friends will be sometimes the first ones to condemn their friends. Said that already. And then lastly, don't be disingenuous to yourself, others, and do not be in spaces and places that benefit off of you being disingenuous to yourself, having to hide or stifle a part of yourself. Be where you're celebrated, not just tolerated. I learned that from one of my pastors. Be where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And that will help you to fully embrace all of who you are and walk in love with whoever and whatever you are. Black, white, gay, straight, Republican, Democrat, I don't care. I don't care, and God doesn't either. Who is love doesn't care about those things that have very little to do with love. But do it in love. That's all I'm asking. If you want to be gay in love. If you want to be straight in love. If you want to be Christian, be Christian. Don't let anybody's faith take you from God's love. And that's unfortunately what a lot of Christianity has become these days. And we see it with people who are making commentary, not just on this video, but other videos alike, condemning people, hating people, and stepping out of love with people when they're commanded to love people, and calling themselves a follower of God who died for people. You have to think about that. He died. He so loved the world, he died for the world. But we have turned this over to hating the world so much that we're even willing to kill people in the world just because of our faith in God. That ain't faith, because faith works by love. That's the truth thereof. So these are just some truths, lessons I'm learning that I wanted to share with you. As God downloaded them to me, I'm uploading them for you. And I pray that maybe it was a blessing for you. But nonetheless, I want you to always remember, God accepts you. Even if you haven't yet, and you're still learning how, God accepts you. And hopefully this video, as controversial as it may be, can help those who are trying to navigate their own Diddies in their life, their own situations that and weaponizations of different things that has been told and taught to them, or maybe even you told and taught to others. I was a part of that community and committee of hating and bashing or condemning, and I realized that's not love. So that shouldn't be me, because that's not God. So I can go on and I won't, but hopefully this was a blessing to you and you got something out of it. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and subscribe. Until next time, God bless you all, as God accepts you all.